Hello and welcome to Toad for Oracle. In this short video I'll help you get started with Toad for Oracle, and I'll be going through the basic features and functions of the product. There are two other videos which accompany this one, both of which are more advanced, one for developers and one for DBAs, so when you finish watching this one please choose one or both of those to follow up with. So first I'm going to show you how to log on to the Oracle server using Toad. Then I'll go through some of the key features and functions, some of the main windows such as the Schema browser and the editor. I'll show you how to configure Toad by selecting the most appropriate options for you, as well as how to customize the user interface so you can change the look and feel. I'll then show you about the different editions that are available with Toad, so that'll help you identify which of the editions that suit the role that you're in. And then I'll close out with where you can find more information about Toad for Oracle, both inside of Toad and outside. So let's first of all move into Toad. This is the Toad for Oracle interface. At the moment everything is blank because I've yet to log on to a server, and you see here the main menu and the toolbar with a number of buttons and various slide out windows which I'll talk about later on. So let's first make a connection to the server. I'm going to push the connection button first of all. This is how to make a connection and open a connection window. I'll select a username and password to enter, and I'm using a direct connection. There are a number of different ways in which you can connect to the server. You can either select a TNS ORA file, or you can use a direct connection, or you can use the LDAP interface. With a direct connection you need to put a host name and a port number and a service name. And you can also specify a color that you want to associate with this connection. That helps you differentiate the different windows that you might have open in Toad from one another, particularly if you're connecting to production databases. If you're making a connection to production database, then you can ensure that you don't accidentally change anything on that database by setting your session to read only. If you want to make a change on that session, then you have to disconnect and reconnect with that unchecked. So let's go ahead and make a connection. And you see that the first window that opens in my case is the Schema browser. In your case you might find a different window open. By default, in fact, it's the editor window, and I'll talk about how you can change that startup window when I talk about the options. Okay, so first of all, the Schema browser. The Schema browser has a number of different ways that it can present object information to you. The one I've chosen is a multi-tabbed arrangement. If I use this option over here, I can change the style, the left-hand style, to a drop-down list, a tabbed single row, or a tree view. If I select tree view just to see what it looks like, you can see that this might be more helpful for you if you prefer this type of view. All the objects are in separate nodes, and I can expand each node and view the objects. For objects that belong in a different schema, then I have another schemas node which I can expand out. If I revert back to my original where I have tabs, I can change the schema using this drop down and select a different schema from which I want to view objects. So I have these primary tabs on the left hand side which are my object types, and for each object type there is associated secondary tabs on the right hand side which give me attributes for each of the associated objects. So if I click an employee table, you'll see the columns of the table, any indexes I have in the table, any constraints related to that table, data, partitions, referential integrity associated with the table, policies, auditing, etc. Data is quite a popular one, as is script. Script is the DDL script that was used to create that object. So I can create an object similar to that or make some changes, as well as data clearly. So let's select the department table and have a look at some of the options that are available with the data grid. So click the department table, click the data tab, and the first thing I want to do is turn off any columns I don't want to see. So if I select this little box in the top left column of the grid, I can turn off any columns that I don't want to see, such as row ID. Another way to do that is to simply grab the column header and just pull it away, so it removes itself like so. So I'm left with the columns I want to see. And now I want to have a look at some of these salaries here, and I want to calculate some of the average values and totals and that sort of thing. So I'll select a range of salaries. Let's just select a group like this, and then use this sum button. It has a sum, average, count, min and max, and click all of them. You can see the values displayed at the bottom. I can move columns around. I could grab this column header here and move it across to the left till the arrows light up, let go, and then I've moved that column to the left. And all this is done locally, local manipulation. I'm not doing anything on the database. And then the other thing I want to do is to actually save the data out into an Excel file. So let's select Export Dataset, right click, Export Dataset, select Excel file, and let's change the name of the Excel file to be dept. And then I want to launch the file after creation. In other words, I want to launch the document into Excel when I'm done so I can see it, because this is something I want to do on a routine basis. I want to persist this window state. So the lower left corner here, a little camera icon that says Save Load Window Snapshot. I'll just push that, and this is something I'm going to save as an app. So let's call it, let's save it into an existing app. I've got a number of apps here already. Let's save it into this one, dev demo, and let's call it export dept data. So that's that done. That's it running again. And now to retrieve that, I can go up to the rerun menu, and you can see here under the rerun menu is the last export I did, together with a whole bunch of other operations that I also persisted. So being able to persist a window state for reuse is going to save a lot of time if that's something you do on a routine basis. So now let's look at the editor. Editor is one of the most popular windows in Toad, because this is where you'll be if you're working with PL SQL code or SQL scripts or PLSQL or a number of different types. This is a list here: SQL, hexadecimal, RMAN scripts, and that type of thing. So the editor will work with all of those, and it will automatically recognize the thing that you're working with. So if you have a script, I'll go to my SQL recall. SQL recall window contains a list of previously executed SQL statements which you can then select from. So if you're running the same SQL on a regular basis, you can come in here and find it, rather like we did a moment ago with rerun, and just drop some SQL in that way. So I select a SQL statement, double click it so it appears in the editor, and then I can go ahead and run it. So for a script where you get a result generated, a select statement, I can generate an execution plan for this SQL. A couple of other things I can use while I'm in the editor is the object palette and code snippets immediately below it. The object palette it shows me objects that are accessible from the default schema, but equally I can go and access objects in a different schema, and I can access different object types. So I could build out a SQL statement using the object palette. I could display column names as well for an object. So if I've got a table, this table here, I can see the columns displayed. So this is very handy for someone who's not familiar with the schema that they're in, and I can start building out a list of columns that I want to select for this table, like a multi-select, double click and run it. Equally, the code snippets are going to give me access to different sort of chunks of code that I can drop in, so things like group functions, date functions, things like that. So I can also create PL SQL code, and I can create it from scratch using some startup templates. So in Toad there are some startup templates depending upon the type of object you want to create. So let's say I want to create a new procedure. I give it a name, and each of them comes with a default template. If I'm following coding standards, I could create my own template, but these are some default ones, and then click OK, and then I'll get a basic stored procedure template. Let's open an existing stored procedure though. If I go to the file open, I can select it from the file system. I can also select it from the database. So let's select one from the database. Like so, and then I can immediately start editing it and compiling it. So in this case, this is the multifunction button, which for PL/SQL code will do a compile as opposed to an execute if it's SQL or a SQL statement or a SQL script. Notice again the syntax highlighting is validating object names, keywords, and so forth. The other thing with the editor is that we have the ability to integrate the editor with version control. So if you're using a version control system such as TFS or Subversion, you can make it work with the editor via a utility called team coding. And team coding is a way to have code checked in and out. So if I log on as a different user in this case, I'll just show you a quick example of what happens if your code is being controlled and I want to open a, let's say, a function. Select this function and I'm going to open into the editor from the Schema browser. So the default action, if you double click a PL/SQL program in the Schema browser, is in fact to open it into the editor, and that's what will happen. And you'll see that I've automatically turned on checked out. This particular program is control code and it's automatically been checked out. And it's possible then to look into the team coding utility window through the dashboard and actually look at the state of that code. You can see that it's checked out. I can see who checked it out. I can see if I can't check it out, who has it checked out, in which case it will be locked. And all these other programs are programs which have been decided is going to be controlled. So that's team coding. One of the other things I can do as well is to have a search around things I'm not familiar with in Toad, and that's really easy. There's a search field, it's called Jump Search, and in Jump Search is something I want to learn about PLSQL. I can just type in PLSQL and I can find out lots of information about PLSQL. And my search window is actually presenting information that it's found grouped by things that are in Toad and things that are outside of Toad. So windows in Toad, menus and toolbars in Toad, option settings are all related to PLSQL, code analysis rules. Code analysis is a code quality tool, code snippets, help, and also Toad World. I'll talk about Toad World a bit later on. But all of this information is related to PLSQL in some way, shape or form, and I can double click it and access it if it's something I'm not familiar with. So for example, if I wanted to look in the help about PLSQL, I double click help and it opens a help file and it takes me to information about using PLSQL in Toad. So Jump To is a very useful feature if it's something that you want to look in Toad World, which is our user community. You can see here's lots of information. Let's say for example I want a video. This is a video here about how to debug PLSQL in Toad, and that will open that video up inside of Toad. You can play that video and you can learn about how to debug. Another way to find out more about Toad is to ask other people that are using Toad, and a great way of doing that is the forum window. So if I open the forum window out, and in order to open these windows, by the way, if you go to the view menu, you'll see all of these slide out windows. So code snippets, forums, object palette, project manager, and so forth. So the forum window is actually giving you visibility to the forum threads that are on our Toad World community site and presenting them to you inside of Toad. And so you can look at something which might be of interest to you. Tabs opening browser windows, for example. Click on that link, and you'll get into a thread there, forum thread, about a particular subject. You may also wish to ask a question about something you're unfamiliar with, and so with the ask a question you can type in a subject, type in a question and post it, and then someone else who's using Toad gets visibility of that question and maybe answer it, and then you'll get a response in Toad telling you that someone's responded to your question, and you can view the response. So this is a very good way of helping other people help you learn more about Toad. So let's run through a couple of options settings. Toad has a number of options. There's the options button there, or you can go view options, and it will give you the same window. And in options, there's quite a lot of different things that you can change that will be different from the default behavior. One of the ones I generally recommend to start with is modifying the startup window. When Toad is installed for the very first time and you run it, it will launch the editor window. If you want a different window, such as a Schema browser, then you can come into here and you can change it so that the editor window does not open first. So you come down here to find the editor. You uncheck the window in the auto open column, and you will come down to Schema browser, and you will turn the Schema browser window on, auto open. You can have multiple windows open, and you can select which one comes in front of the other one. So that's a way of controlling each time you open a new connection to what the initial window is. Another one you might want to check out is the Oracle options, and go to transactions, and then here you'll see that there's an option, should be on by default, where you can have queries executed in separate threads. So if you're spending a lot of time executing different SQL statements, by having this switched on will ensure that Toad generates separate threads for each SQL execution and doesn't create a bottleneck on your desktop machine. So there are lots of other options in here around using Oracle. So what optimizer hints do you want to use? What plan tables do you want to use when you're generating an execution plan? What the default schema is, and so forth. If you want to take advantage of the jump search and the forum windows, you need to go to online and you need to create a Toad World account. So in here you would log in, and if you don't have a Toad World account, one will be created for you once you select login. And once you've got a Toad World account, then you better leverage the information that's on Toad World, and that will enhance your Toad user experience by giving you access to other Toad users that are out there in the Toad community. And bear in mind there are around about 2 million users worldwide. That's a pretty big community. Customization. So I mentioned customization earlier on, and out of the box, Toad comes configured with the menus and the toolbars the way they are, but you can change some things around. If you want to do some general customization in terms of the menus, what appears under the menus, what they're called, and things like that, then if you do a right click anywhere up at the top here and select Customize, then the Customize window will open and these features will be deactivated. All that will happen is you'll get a black rectangle around each menu and submenu, giving you the ability then to either rename it or remove it or whatever you want to do. So I mentioned the jump search earlier on, and one of the things I searched for was the help. If you want to look at the help, go into the help menu and select contents, but also there's a couple of other things I want to point out to you here as well that are in the help that you should be aware of. One is Toad Advisor. Now Toad Advisor is something which you might find useful if you've got difficulty connecting or you've got performance problems or things like that. What Toad Advisor does is look at your environment, your operating environment, and make recommendations that will A, help you improve performance, B, help you make any adjustments if it's got connection issues. For example, it's detected I've got an incorrect NLS lang setting on my client. Maybe I need to change that. If I'm using Unicode databases, I'd better be careful that I have that set properly. And just advisories, what am I using, what am I not using, things like that. So that's a good place to go if you've got any issues. And then also, very simple, but just check what version of Toad you're using, what edition of Toad you're using, and so forth, is very good to know. And of course the help itself. You can also go out to Toad World from here as well. So you can initiate that forum window, as I said before, and do other things. And then the help itself, the actual online help, is a good way of finding out how to use the product. One of the things that I would recommend in here actually is to do a search on videos, because there are a lot of videos inside of the help, and select a video about something that you haven't used, such as team coding, and then run that video. So these video clips are very helpful, so they give you a better idea of how to use these different features. So that's a quick look at Toad for Oracle. So just to close out, I just want to show you what editions are available for developers and DBAs. So we have different editions of Toad that are available depending on your requirements. The entry level of Toad is the base edition, where sort of all the core features of Toad are. So things like debugging and data modeling. There's a data modeler tool that comes with Toad as well, called Toad Data Modeler. Professional edition adds in elements of code quality and data generation. So if you've got coding standards you have to follow, then code analysis will basically ensure that you and your teams adhere to the proper coding standards. Expert edition brings in the SQL tuning, our SQL optimizer tool, which is going to help you very quickly identify where you got performance issues in SQL and tune them. And then the development suite, which is recommended for development teams, covers the whole development life cycle. So it includes code testing, unit testing. It also includes scalability testing, and lots of other features that are designed to ensure that development teams build quality applications. For DBAs, we have the database admin module, which can be added to Toad, which gives you a number of database administration features that the standard Toad for Oracle does not have. And then there are a number of suites. All three of these have a Spotlight, and they also have Benchmark Factory for database workload replay, and they have a backup reporting tool for reporting on your RMAN backups. The spotlights differ slightly for each of these. So this first one, DBA Suite Oracle, has Spotlight on Oracle, which is a real-time diagnostics tool which helps you diagnose the root cause of a performance problem and helps you resolve it very quickly. The Rack edition is very similar, but this time the Spotlight is looking at your Rack cluster environment, and then the Exadata edition is looking at your Exadata appliance. So finally, to help you get more information about using Toad, there is the website. You'll see information there about all the different editions, how to download a trial version, lots and lots of documentation, events such as webcasts and roadshows and things like that. The Toad World community, which is our one-stop shop for anything from a technical level about Toad for Oracle. This is our community forum. It has expert blogs, videos, user forums, access to the betas, etc.